Why do you help handicapped people?
I help handicapped people, and myself I'm actually handicapped as well, because it is the right thing to do and is what my conscience says so.
Thank you. Which disproves what you were just arguing.
Which proves exactly what I said.
No, it does not. It does not. Come on, sir. If it's true that morality is based, as you were arguing, in what's going to benefit the species, how does it benefit the species to help handicapped people? It drains the few.
In codifying exactly what is good and what is bad, we also tell ourselves what is also good and what is also bad.
So if my culture tells me that to put my female baby out in the snow to freeze to death is good, does that make it good?
To you, as a Westerner, no, it does not. To that particular society, which has said that yes, you can do that, then according to those societal norms, it is appropriate to do that heinous act in your eyes.
If my Western society tells me that black people are 3/5 the value of white people, does that make it good?
No, once again, according to your definition, it does not. But according to, say, for instance, the definitions of what was right and wrong 100 years ago in the United States, yes, it was perfectly right.
So, if the Nazi Germans would have won World War II, and if they would have destroyed all people that opposed Dachau and Auschwitz, then gassing Jews would be good.
Once again, according to that specific set of mores, yes, it might have been good for them. But actually, that is actually not completely true. Even to them, it was wrong, because at the end of World War II, when the United States came and the Russians came into Germany and liberated those concentration camps, they are actually caught red-handed setting fire and destroying evidence. So while to us, on the outside, yeah, it may have been perceived to have been good on their end, it was not good because they themselves were trying to cover up their own immoral acts. Furthermore, there is actually a logical fallacy, because referring to an instance where there is such a clear right and wrong and attempting to disprove my own thoughts, that is attempting to invalidate my arguments by going backwards to something that's so obviously wrong.
And I insist you cannot live out that moral relativism consistently.
Oh, I can. I do it all the time. I'm an atheist. I haven't murdered anybody yet. No.
You've missed my entire point. My entire point is not atheists murder people. It's not the point.
Okay, then what is your point, please?
My point is, if there is no God, the existence of moral truth is a farce. If there is no God, morality is subjective, depending upon the individual, depending on the culture, which means nothing's objectively right, nothing's objectively wrong. Okay. It's all a matter of the individual or the culture defining it a certain way.
Right, sure.
Okay. I don't think you can live that out. Why? I think that if someone rapes your sister, you're not going to be able to honestly think. From my perspective, that was wrong. But from the rapist's position, it's right. It's all relative.
Actually,
you can't.
No, according to him, it may be perfectly legitimate and right. According to my definition, it is wrong. According to society's definition, it is wrong. Therefore, society itself will go after that individual and put him in jail. Now, say for instance, according to a Western civilization, and the age of consent for somebody is 18 years old. Go to the Middle East, it is as young as 12 years old. Okay? So say for instance, if an older male marries this female and consummates said marriage, according to their social mores, it is 100% correct. According to our social mores, it is 100% wrong. Even rape itself is dictated by social mores.
Not too long ago in India, sute was practiced. The widow was burned on the pyre with her husband's body. For that culture, at that point, it was right. Does that make it objectively right?
Once again, okay, so you're bringing my ancestors into this now. Okay, great. So sute, as this gentleman has said, was the practice where Hindus, when the husband died first, the female would also be put to death at the funeral pyre. Okay. Personally, I think this is completely atrocious. Furthermore, that is a small subsect sort of a small extremist sect of Hinduism, which, by the way, I believe was completely wrong. According to their social mores, yes, that was right. According to the rest of the world and the British Empire at the time, it was wrong, and those people were actually shot to pieces, but that's neither here nor there.
Now, my point is, my observation and my experience of life is, you don't have to follow your culture. I don't have to follow my culture. In fact, I have the greatest respect for Gandhi, who chose to violate his culture and to follow his conscience instead of his culture. Now, why did Gandhi follow his conscience instead of his culture? Because he was convinced that his culture was wrong and that his conscience was telling him that which is true.
Okay, in regards to what? British rule?
The caste system. Gandhi stood against the caste system valiantly, wonderfully. Why? His conscience told him, my culture is wrong. Gandhi critiqued his own self, his own life when he lived in South Africa. He was brutally honest about, gosh, I bought into some racist attitudes. I'm sorry. He followed his conscience. He allowed his conscience to tell him what was objectively real. He critiqued his culture and he critiqued himself.
Okay, now let's take Gandhi, for example. You're using Gandhi as a measure of that which is morally right. You're appealing to a higher authority, which is yet another
No, I'm not.
You're taking
No, I'm not.
You're not?
I'm using Gandhi as an illustration of one individual, and I hope you're just like Gandhi, and I hope I'm like Gandhi, in that we can exercise our conscience to contradict the morals of our culture. And we can say to our culture, we can say to the majority, you're wrong with Sati. You're wrong with the caste system. You're wrong with enslaving Africans in America. That is wrong. Your racism is wrong. Why? Because I have a conscience that ties me into objective morals. My point is, then, the only way there can be an objective moral is if there is some type of god or gods who create and define the value of a human life and the value of justice.
Value of human life has been completely subjective throughout history. And once again, according to Hindus' social mores and culture, Gandhi, after he died, went to a higher level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Now, according to Christian beliefs, he was going to hell because he didn't get baptized.
No.
Or he didn't
put his faith in Christ. That would be the argument. Okay, but that's a totally different issue.
Anyways,
The issue right now is not Jesus. The issue is atheism. You said you're an atheist, and I'm trying to show you that you can't live out your moral relativism consistently. Okay, now how do you as a scientist scientifically prove what is good and just and right?
Once again,
You can't.
actually you can.
No, you can't. How do you scientifically prove what is good?
Okay, there was a study done about 10 years ago where they took different people and they put them through a PET scanner, which is positron emission tomography. They radio label glucose and then they put it into a person, and then they have the person make various moral decisions. Okay, and say for instance, so they would do things like, say for instance, my favorite experiment was you have one man, okay, next to a railroad track. Okay, a train is coming and it's going to kill 3 other guys. You could either push that man into the way of that train and kill him like this, and save those 3 guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, say for instance, you could do the same thing. Only all you have to do is flip a switch.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when the person was confronted with that decision, they felt it to be more difficult to actually push that man into that train. However, if they was flipping a switch, it would be very easy to do that. So, in that sense, the needs of the many, as they say in Star Trek, outweigh the needs of the few. Okay? It would be more morally correct to kill one person to save 3. Now, say for instance, that person would know it is the right thing to do in order to save those 3 people, but it would not sit as well with their conscience if they actually had to actively do it. And when they put these moral dilemmas into these and confronted these people, the different parts of their brains were activated.
So?
Okay. So conscience is actually hardwired into our minds.
Okay, good. I agree.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But you just said that I couldn't prove it. That proves that there is a conscience.
You still have... No. You cannot scientifically prove justice.
Okay. Now further.
Justice is not a scientific postulate.
Okay.
Justice is a philosophical, theological concept. It's an intangible value. It's not... You don't get a pound of justice in your science lab. You can watch the way the brain reacts, sure. You can notice that we're hardwired, sure. But that still doesn't change the fact that I have a free will to respect you, or I can choose to use my free will to be disrespectful.
Okay.
And if I smack you in the face and someone says, hey man, why'd you smack him? And I said, because I had to. My biological makeup forced me to smack him.
Okay.
I'm lying.
Okay, now, so you're saying that the evidence of consciousness, or
Conscience.
conscience.
Right.
You got me mixed up doing it now. I blame you.
Thank you. He was the guy who confused me.
It's all right, I'm just teasing. All right, so you're saying that evidence of a deity is based in the inability for me to prove that there is a conscience.
No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying look at your life.
Okay.
Science, wonderful branch of knowledge.
Okay.
Logic, not scientific, logic. The ability to think rationally. Another wonderful branch of knowledge. History, not based on science, based on the trustworthiness of an eyewitness testimony. You don't scientifically prove that Washington was first president of the United States in a lab here at the University of Arizona every September. No. You study eyewitness testimony. Wonderful branch of knowledge. Conscience, the ability to understand right and wrong, not scientifically provable. And experience, that you have sense experience that you use in science. Sight, touch, empiricism. But then, when it comes to moral experience, it's not based on science, it's based on your experience of life. You experience a conscience that says, you know something? It's Sute is objectively wrong. Gandhi, in fighting the caste system, did that which is absolutely objectively right, standing for the dignity of all of human life. But then you got to ask yourself, wait a second, these values of human dignity, of justice, what are they? What's the basis of them? Are they real or are they just subjective? If there is no God, they're subjective. I create my own values, you create your own values, Gandhi creates his own values. It's all subjective.
It is. And in terms of being subjective, I can look at Gandhi's mores and decide that, yeah, I do agree with this. Right?
Yeah.
But say, for instance, if I was a psychopath, as many other psychopaths have done in the past,
Yes.
what they will do is that they will decide that that set of mores doesn't apply to me. Instead, and actually there's a couple of serial killers that have done this, will actually study Ted Bundy, Theodore Kaczynski,
Right.
and other psychopaths at the time, and adopt their own twisted set of mores based off of them.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, going back to what you said previously, while I disagree with what you're arguing, is that according to, in my opinion, what you're saying is that you cannot prove that I cannot go to my lab and
Right.
prove that
Justice.
that justice exists,
Right,
or
exactly.
conscience exists.
Yeah.
Now, my own opinion, well, not really opinion actually, the opinion of me and my several scientific brethren,
Right.
we actually have these conversations for fun, if you can believe that.
I like it.
Is that lack of evidence of something is not evidence to the contrary.
Okay.
Okay. In my opinion, which my interpretation of what you're saying is that I cannot prove this, therefore it is evidence of a deity.
No. That's not the point. The point
Is
is,
that what he's saying?
no, it's not. No, let me start to. My point is, every single one of you experiences a conscience. Your conscience informs you. There are maybe not many, but there are a few objective morals. But look at guys, you study anthropology, we're all reading off the same sheet of music in one sense. Adultery, rape, murder, around the world are unacceptable. Why? Because the human conscience informs people it's wrong. My conscience says he's a human being.
Right.
But my racist environment says he's not white, so smack him. Now I got a decision to make. I follow my conscience or my culture. I got a free will, and guess what? I don't have to follow my conscience. And guess what? I don't have to follow my environment either, or my culture. I have to choose. Am I going to follow my conscience and respect him as a fellow human being created in the image of God? Or am I going to follow my culture which says white supremacy? And I got to choose.
All right, now I think that your culture, the reason why you have not, that you are not smacking me silly right now, is that your culture, as being a member of the, as a citizen of the United States, our culture dictates that I am equal to you, even though I have a darker skin tone.
Right.
Right. And then you have adopted these set of mores. It is not a source of some. It does not come from a deity. Now, Let me get back to one point, and then I actually have to go to work.
You bet.
I have to
It's
go
been
to
a
work.
delight talking with you.
Likewise. But I'll make one more point. In that a conscience has been placed inside of you by your God.
God has given all of us a conscience.
Okay.
But not if morality is relative. Now, come on, guys, be consistent. If morality is relative, then the conscience is just a subjective taste. That's all it is. Just taste.
Please allow me to finish. What happens is that, in my opinion, what is going on, and I respect you, but I fundamentally disagree with you, is that you are saying that something cannot be proved. And the source of, okay, so your conscience, or a conscience that has been placed inside of all of us, in my opinion, is a product of our experiences, social mores, and genetic factors as well. So it's nature and nurture. Okay, those two facets which form us into who we are as an individual. Now, what happens is that, in my opinion, we cannot prove that a conscience has been placed into us by nature. So many then attribute it to a deity. But same thing has been applied to several scientific principles over the millennia, whether it be the tides, whether it be weather, so on and so forth. But in my opinion, the logical fallacy there is that lack of evidence is not evidence to the contrary. So you cannot attribute this to a deity, because who knows, in 20, 30 years from now, we may unlock exactly what conscience is. So
You still have missed my point.
I don't think I have.
It's not, yes, you have. The conscience informs me of an objective moral.
Does it? So
Yes, and the only way there can be now this, just please get this. The only way there can be an objective moral, separate from me, separate from you, is if a
God.
creating mind, a moral lawgiver, has created and defined that objective moral. It's the conscience that puts me in touch with, not God, it puts me in touch with that objective moral. Then my rational mind asks me, how can that objective moral exist? Obviously, there's only one way. If there is a God, a moral lawgiver, who creates that objective moral.
Well,
you're assuming it
I'll
exists.
finish off my other point, then I'll make one quick more, then I really have to get to work. So anyways, going back to what I was saying before, is that if evidence to the contrary, lack of evidence is not evidence to the contrary. So by that rationale, the evidence that there is a creator is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller over time. Now, going back to what you're saying right now, in terms of anthropology, us as a society, okay, say for instance you got two groups. Group A is a group of psychopaths. Group B is a group of people who have a moral standard. Group A is going to end up offing each other or disintegrating because they have no fabric to hold them together. The group B, that is a group of people who have a set of mores, can say, for instance, can then form a social fabric, form a government, for a set of laws, for a group of morals for them to live by. Which of the two groups is going to prevail? The group that's not going to have any social fabric because it's going to be everybody for themselves, they're going to just disperse. The second group is going to form a fabric, and then they're going to be able to prevail.
So why do you help handicapped people?
I help handicapped people, and myself, I'm actually handicapped as well, because it is the right thing to do, and it's what my conscience says so.
Thank you. Which disproves what you were just arguing.
Which proves exactly what I said.
No, it does not. It does not. Come on, sir. If it's true that morality is based, as you were arguing, in what's going to benefit the species, how does it benefit the species to help handicapped people? It drains the few natural resources we have.
Okay, say for
You help handicapped people because you know it's right. And you said it beautifully, magnificently. Because you know with your conscience that it is good and right to help handicapped people. What about my little handicapped friends who are nowhere near the intellectual capacity of a Stephen Hawking? See, your argument then is, oh, good, great, so handicapped people are valuable because of Stephen Hawking's intellectual brilliance. Baloney. That is not why handicapped people are valuable, sir.
Every single person.
And your value has nothing to do with your IQ or your GPA. It has to do with the fact that you are a human being created by God for a purpose. And I could give a rip that you're a grad student and that you've taught ethics. That has nothing to do with your value. You're a human being created in the image of God. That's why you're valuable. And that's the difference between our worldviews.
heal amputees? If we got like 1 million people, or let's just say everyone here got in a circle and we all like prayed really hard.
Or why does
to get
God kill
this amputee healed, as it says like in numerous passages in the Bible that will answer your prayer. So we all get in a big circle and pray, and nothing happens, and nothing has ever happened. Why? How do you explain that?
You bet. Do you actually think that prayer is the way to push the red hot button to get the celestial bellboy to do my bidding?
Well, it certainly says so.
No, it does not. Prayer is not an exercise in getting from God what I want. That is not what prayer is. Prayer does get God's attention, but it's not the way for me to get God to do what I want God to do. In other words, prayer is an experiment in intimacy. It is not an exercise in getting the goody-goodies that I want.
It says in Matthew 21 that it says, ask whatever, and whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith. And it says, and he said to them, this kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer. Ask, and it will be given to you. You seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you.
That's right. And he's not saying, pray for the Mercedes, and when you get home, it'll be at the end of the driveway. He's not saying, don't study for an exam, pray for an A before you take the exam, and you'll get an A. He's not saying that.
What about a veteran who loses their leg in the war? Let's pick
That's
something.
Tragic.
Yeah, so let's say that this is the person we're praying for. We're not praying for good exam grades. We're praying for the child to not die of leukemia.
Yeah.
In fact, he says just the opposite.
I don't know why God allows children to die. But I can promise you, sir, if there is no God, despair is the only logical conclusion. Because that when that baby dies, that baby is gone. And that baby will never experience life again. But if there is a God who loves that baby, then there's the possibility of a new body and eternal life in heaven. That means there's hope. There's a basis for hope.
So what if you never exposed to Christianity? You grow up in, I don't know, say China, and you only live to be 10, or it's just something horrible. You never ever learn about Christianity. So, I mean, that seems like you're going to go to hell, I think.
Okay, what are you really asking? It's a great question, but what's at the heart of that question?
The heart of the question is, how do people who have never learned of God,
Right.
how are they expected to know about God and to believe in God so that they can go to heaven? Because I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear that you have to believe in Him to go to heaven, and He's omniscient, so He knows whether or not you believe in Him.
Okay. In the New Testament, Hebrews chapter 11 gives a partial list of people's names who are going to be in heaven. Not one of them heard about Jesus. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Rahab, a Gentile prostitute. Obviously they never heard about Jesus. They were born hundreds and thousands of years before Christ. But they're going to be in heaven. Why? Because they put their faith in God to the best of their ability. They responded to all the light, all the truth that God gave them. They weren't atheists. They weren't agnostics. They said, of course God exists. Look at creation. There's got to be a creator. Look at the design. There's got to be a designer. Look at the picture. There's got to be an artist. Look at Mount Rushmore. There's got to be a sculptor. That's not just water dripping down the rock face, carving out Washington and Lincoln and Jefferson and Teddy Roosevelt's heads, right? So they believed in God. They never heard about Christ, but in humility, they put their faith in God. They're going to be in heaven. I'm saying that one of the reasons I believe God is because I know that Mount Rushmore didn't happen by accident. I know that Mount Rushmore required a sculpture, someone to carve those heads out. Well, guess what? Your eye, your ear, your central nervous system is far more complex than Mount Rushmore. If I have to believe that Mount Rushmore was created by a sculptor, I've got to believe that the amazing design and order in your body demands an intelligent mind, a creator.
But why do you suppose that? I mean, it's not necessary. There's a perfectly adequate scientific theory that says that all of this happened without God through evolution, and evolution's happens to be one of the most confirmed theories in existence. Unless the devil planted fossils. But I mean, the argument for complexity, that it's like it's too complicated to have existed before, or, you know, without someone creating it, is just, I mean, that's just a huge supposition. That, okay, well, it had to have been made by something.
It's a huge supposition.
I mean, you're going from we don't know to had to have been made by something.
Yeah.
I mean, why you were making a huge assumption? Why?
Really? All right. I don't think it's a huge assumption for me to say. Driving to school today, I found this on the side of the road. Isn't it amazing the way the metal just sort of came together? Isn't it amazing the way the glass just sort of fit into place? The extra pieces of metal just sort of fell off. And lo and behold, as a result of the impersonal plus chance plus time, we have a wristwatch.
Well, the wristwatch.
That's lunacy, sir. The intricacy of the wristwatch demands a watchmaker. Go from the wristwatch to the hand. The hand is far more complex than the wristwatch. If you demand that I believe there's a watchmaker behind this, and then you tell me that that is a result of chance and fate and time, I think you've parted company with your brain.
Compare what we have here. So we've got, on the one hand, we've got natural selection, you know, like fossil evidence of early, you know, pre-humans and the development of people, and the people who are more likely to survived, and evolutionary theory of morality, which, you know, they teach classes on in the philosophy department, all of these complicated theories. And then you've got, well, it had to have been made by someone. It's too complicated. So let's just, you know, suppose that there's a God. I mean, like, which as an intellectual, is the person supposed to pick? Are they supposed to go, okay, I think it's too complicated. I'm scared it's too complicated. It has to have been created by something up there. Or how about we've got this scientific theory, we've got fossil evidence, we've got genetic evidence, we've got appendixes, which I'm sure are very important for some reason. Being sarcastic, I mean, it's like it's so the idea that just by virtue of its complexity has to be created is not absurd. Or, sorry, is absurd. It's absurd to say that it has to have been created. So saying that it's lunacy is merely a reflection of your rejection of scientific empirical evidence that we have. We have evidence of it in the same sense that I have evidence that there's grass in front of me, versus a guy in the sky that we have no tangible evidence of.
All right, it's real simple. Modern science began in an environment where there was a biblical worldview. The biblical worldview is the whole reason we can do science is because we have been given a rational mind that is able to understand the order and design in the universe. Therefore, by using our rational minds in responsible ways, we can unlock the secrets of the universe. Johann Kepler, the father of modern astronomy, as he peered out in the stars at night, exclaimed, "O God, I am thinking your thoughts after you." Copernicus, Newton, all had a profound faith in God. And because they understood that God exists, they understood my rational mind has been given me by this rational creator. He's created it in an orderly way, and I can unlock the secrets of the universe by doing good science.
Now, see, once again, they've done studies where they have, like, say, I mean, you're probably going to reject this because you don't think animals have souls, but it's very clear that if something weird happens, people are evolutionarily driven to be superstitious. So if a comet comes through right now and strikes the middle of the mall, you know, we happen to know about objects entering the Earth's atmosphere. Let's just say we had no conception of this. Now, do you think we're going to think, I mean, can you blame people for having a theory, believing in God before we had the scientific explanation of why there's a comet crashing in? So the point is, you still haven't gotten at why are we supposed to go straight to, I have a created rational mind that gives me epistemic access to God's world. This is the supposition. I'm just saying we have epistemic access, and epistemic access gives us this scientific evidence based on what we can see. We can see fossils, they're real. And then you're going to man in the sky still. I still haven't gotten reason for man in the sky.
All right. Sir, the narrow-minded fundamentalist Christian makes a mistake when they say, science proves God. Guess what? you're making the same mistake of the conservative, narrow-minded, fundamentalist Christian. You're saying science disproves God. Scientific knowledge is based on the repeatability of an experiment. If you can't repeat it outside of Tucson, Arizona, it is not science. Its scientific knowledge is based on the repeatability of an experiment. That's the only way you can verify it. God is not a scientific question. Your girlfriend is not a scientific question. The value of justice, the value of love, is not a scientific question. Whether we should remove a dictator from power is not a scientific question. It is an ethical question, a moral question, a political question. It is not a scientific question. Science is a wonderful branch of knowledge, but it is a very narrow branch of knowledge. Science cannot prove God. Science cannot disprove God. That is why you're using evolution as if evolution shows us that God exists is so narrow-minded, it's so intellectually dishonest. It's just like the conservative fundamentalist Christian who says, oh, I can scientifically prove God exists. Baloney, sir. You can't scientifically prove God or disprove God. You can't do it. That's exactly what you were doing.
So like,
I can
what I'm
clarify.
talking about here, you got a choice between two things. You got the science view and the man in the sky view. Of
No,
how
you
the
do
comet
not.
comes through.
That is wrong. That is what I'm trying to show you. Is a wrong dichotomy you're setting up. It is not science or God. It's not science or philosophy, guys. Science is a wonderful branch of knowledge. Philosophy is a wonderful branch of knowledge. It's not science or philosophy. It's not science or history. It's not science or God. See, when someone says to me, Cliff, unless you can scientifically prove it, it's not true. See, that's not science. That's philosophy. It's a philosophy that says all of truth can be determined scientifically. That is false. All you got to do is, to the person who says to you, unless you can scientifically prove it, it's not true, just say, really? Please scientifically prove to me that unless you can scientifically prove something, it's not true. You can't do that. You see, people get mixed up. They think that philosophy is science and that science is philosophy. They're not. They are two different schools of thinking, of discovering truth. When you go on a date with a young man, do you analyze the guy scientifically? I doubt it. No. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I can promise you, the relationships in my family are not based on science. They're based on trust. They're based on psychology. They're based on love. They're based on credibility. They're based on loyalty. None of that is scientific. It is very reasonable. It's very logical, but it even goes beyond logic. Love goes beyond logic. And I can promise you, for the cat who comes out here saying, I can scientifically prove God, they're lying. And so the cat who comes out here and says, I can scientifically disprove God, is also lying. You can't do it.
It does not follow from the scientific explanation of the comet coming down that I have to scientifically analyze my date.
Right.
Now,
Sir,
there's
science is a
scientific
wonderful little
explanation
branch of
in
knowledge,
the brain
but it's
of
very
why
small.
we believe in God, and it's similar to LSD. They've done studies. They've sent people to churches tripping on LSD, and they've had profound religious experiences. So here's another scientific explanation in our science category of scientific explanation of the world that actually incorporates God. And instead of taking his word for it, take the fact that there's scientific evidence to support this. So if you want to go with the guy who just says that it's just take my word for it, it's got to be something other than science. Or if you want to go for, we've done studies that show that there's something in our brain that makes us religious. I mean, ultimately, you got to pick. But I just
Never once have I said out here, and have I said to anybody, take my word for it, guys, you should believe in God. You'd be an idiot to believe in God because I say take my word for it. That'd be stupid. I'm not saying that. I'm saying believe in God, Because the evidence of order and design points to an intelligent mind. Because the Big Bang points to the fact that the universe is not eternal. There's a beginning. Guess what, guys? Everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe has a beginning. Therefore, the universe has a cause. The best explanation and answer to the question, who caused the universe, is an eternal, uncaused cause. Sounds a lot like God. Third reason you should believe in God: moral, objective truth. The slaughter of an innocent child is objectively wrong. The only way there can be an objective moral is if there is some type of God to create that value, that intangible value. If there is no God, then you and I create values. And if I say slaughtering children is good, and you say slaughtering children is evil, I'm not right, you're not wrong, you're not right, I'm not wrong. It's a taste. It's a subjective preference, a taste, a prejudice. You can't live that way. You know very well that there might not be many, but there are at least a few objective morals, like slaughtering innocent children is absolutely wrong. So that's why you should believe God exists. Not because I tell you to, but because you think it through on your own, and you see the evidence points to some type of God existing.
No matter what your view is, there's always someone with a different one. It's entirely subjective, but there's ones that are more accepted than others.
All right.
But there are always people who are going to say it's right, because morals aren't objective.
Okay.
They're entirely subjective.
Okay,
You decide
fine.
your morals for yourself.
So this guy is a lot stronger than I am.
We're going to go back to the punching people thing you did yesterday.
No,
It
we're
doesn't
not going back
defend
there.
your position.
We're not going back.
Okay, wherever you're going.
This guy's, that's right,
I wanna
wherever
see
I'm
it.
going, I'm
I wanna
wrong.
see
I
it.
understand your open-mindedness there. Come on, buddy, think, will you?
Okay.
Just open your mind just a little bit and think.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right, this guy's stronger than me, all right? Let's say he's got 10 weightlifters behind him. So there are 12 of us. He plus his weightlifting friends and little wimpy skinny Cliff. These guys say stealing is good. I am convinced that I don't care whether they can beat me to a pulp. I don't care if they outvote me 11-1. I am convinced that there is an objective moral respecting the property of another human being. I don't care how much power they have. I don't care what the culture is that they've established that says stealing is good. I am convinced by exercising my conscience that there's an objective moral value, respect of another person's property.
Okay.
Only way that can be true is if there is some type of being prior to us who creates and defines the value of a human life and therefore the value of their property. Does that make any sense?
No, but what you're saying is exactly...
Wait, does that make any sense?
Just let me, can I explain?
No, I
let
want
you
an
talk.
answer.
Can I talk?
Yes, you can talk, but first
I'll tell
answer
you
me.
why it makes sense.
Does that make sense?
It does. You know why it makes
Okay.
sense? Because you're saying exactly what I said, where that view
Yeah.
is the popular view. It's the widely accepted view. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't necessarily make it wrong. Your view of for yourself is your subjective moral.
Okay.
There is no objective moral.
Okay.
Because there will always be dissenting opinions. There will always be opinions in favor. But there's no overwhelmingly that everyone agrees is something that is right or wrong.
Oh, okay, good. Then we have to define objective. Objective moral does not mean everybody agrees.
No, it means
You've
a moral
totally
removed
misunderstood.
from your own opinions from yourself.
To objective moral means independent of majority opinion. This is true. So what I'm arguing is independent of your culture that might tell you that black people are inferior to white people. Independent of your culture, racism is wrong. Why? Because a human being has intrinsic value, because they're created in the image of God. They're not just pawn scum evolved to a higher order. That's why racism is wrong. Now, if the Nazis would have won World War II, and the cultures would all say Jews are inferior, that still doesn't change the objective moral that says, sorry, Jews have equal value to Gentiles because we're all created in the image of God. That's an objective moral based on the value of a human life.
But you can't say whether that is a right or wrong thing. Because it's still based on your perspective. Your perspective is influenced by the Bible, but it's still your perspective.
Does 2 + 2 = 4?
Yes.
Is that just your perspective?
No, that's what math teaches us.
All right.
It's fact.
Now,
based
what
on
does your
we've been
moral
taught over
experience teach you? Does your moral observation teach you that it's possible that the abuse of an innocent child is good?
Yeah, I'll be back, of course.
No. Your moral experience teaches you the abuse of an innocent child is wrong. Fine. I'm appealing to your moral experience. And I'm saying, come on, friend, wake up and smell the coffee. Your moral experience is the abuse of an innocent child is always wrong. Now you got to ask yourself, why? Why is the abuse of an innocent child always wrong? Because a child has value. Why does a child have value? Because they've been created by God for a purpose. If there is no God, the child does not have value because the child is pond scum evolved to a higher order. That's all I am. That's all you are if there is no God. That's what you call thinking clearly through the issue.